how the forfeit would have worked because they forfeited earlier in the season to Seneca Valley. Because they did that, they got minus 10 Gardner points. Coach Brzezinski was saying, I don't know, maybe we get minus 5 or something. The WPIAL told me that nothing has fully been decided yet, but he said it probably has been, and it was. So, they miss out on Gardner points, but congratulations to them for finishing strong.
And by the way, I don't want to get too much of a tangent because we got a lot to get to. To me, it's so confusing for common fans or even for people who follow it closely to figure out all of this stuff. And so to me, it's pretty obvious if two teams have the same record in conference play, head-to-head decides it. When you have three teams, it gets really, really complicated. And that was the case with Baldwin, Cannon-Mac, and Norwin. And unfortunately, the Knights were the team that had no chance heading into the final week. But I would like to see maybe a simplified way to kind of sort all of that out. And I know in other sports, they take teams if they split their head-to-head and they add additional teams to the bracket. Unfortunately for football, doesn't seem like that will ever be the case. A game that you had the call of, Dan, you saw Bell Vernon area 46, McKeesport 14. Go back and watch that one. It'll be well represented in Plays of the Week. But, man, to get the conference championship in such emphatic fashion, this has been an incredible season for Bell Vernon. Incredibly dominant in that game. And, Sean, I said after the game, it was a 46-14 game. So if you're telling people to watch back to it, people are saying, why would I watch back to the game? I'm telling you it was extremely entertaining because of Devin Whitlock, because of Quentin Martin. Those two guys were just absolutely unbelievable, and Whitlock was a human highlight reel all game long. And the blueprint to beat McKeesport is you get up on them early and you force them to pass the football because they're not geared to do that, and they haven't been for a long, long time because their running game is so good. And it's easier said than done. There hasn't been teams consistently year after year that have been able to do that to McKeesport because their running game is so good. Bell Vernon holds them to a 3-and-out. Whitlock returns the ensuing punt for a touchdown. And, at that point, Bell Vernon controlled the game from then until the end. McKeesport had one nice drive, and that was it. But Devin Whitlock making things happen. He was unbelievable. The defense was unbelievable. And Quentin Martin had an interception defensively, had a couple of touchdowns. He was great, too. And I also have to give a shout-out to Bobby Boyd, the running back for McKeesport, Sean. He's only a junior. He was really held in check other than one drive, but he ran his heart out, man. He's like 5'7", and he runs really, really hard. So I got to give him a shout-out for seeing what he did. But again, as I mentioned a little bit ago, it's a new season now. Don't forget about McKeesport and Thomas Jefferson. I think those two teams are still going to be competing for a WPIAL championship, but Bell Vernon's certainly the top dog. Yeah, Bell Vernon gets the number 1 seed in 4A. We'll run down that entire bracket in a little bit, but a team that unfortunately would not be in the playoffs in 4A, Greensburg-Salem, as they came up just shy. They lose 30-27 to the Plum Mustangs. You can go back and listen to that. Unfortunate ending to the season for a team that really had a lot of bright spots in the Golden Lions. It was a little surprising. Hayden Teska did not have his typical performance. He struggled to throw the football. They had some success running early, but ultimately could not put it away, and it sort of epitomized the season for the Golden Lions. They got off to a pretty good start in the game, but ultimately couldn't finish. Yeah, and it really is a shame to see where Greensburg-Salem is out of the playoff picture when they got off to such a great start during the season. I mean, they ran off 4 straight wins after losing to Hempfield. They were in a great position to really compete maybe for a top 2 spot in the conference, but they lost to Hampton 45-6, and then a 19-12 victory over Mars a couple of games later after a loss to Armstrong, but then they finished the season with 2 straight losses. And it really was a great game last week against your alma mater, Plum. 30-27 loss, but the bottom line is for Coach Kiefer and the guys, they didn't make the playoffs, and that really is a surprise considering where they were not long ago. Yeah, and you look at the records, Plum, Greensburg-Salem, and Indiana all 3-4. 2 of the teams made the playoffs. The Golden Lions were the one who did not. They needed a little help if they lost, and they didn't get it. Yep, unfortunate that that's the way that their season ends. You can go back and listen to that one. You can also go back and listen to the regular season finale for both Derry area and Jeanette, 2 teams that had been really good in recent years that had, quite frankly, kind of really challenging seasons. I just want to put another plug in, too, Sean, for Coach Hall, the interview that Brennan Anthony did with him, because we have almost 1,000 views to this. It's up on our YouTube channel. It was really cool hearing him talk about his career and then his final game against Clareton. And how about
what Clairton did for him.
Yep.
The video that was posted, Anthony posted, a few others did as well. If you didn't see it, that's also on our social media. Clairton and the Jeanette bands played the Jeanette fight song together before the game. Coach Hall was out in the middle of the field. Coach Wade was out there as well for Clairton. Those two hugged during the song. It was really neat to see because they've been some hardcore rivals for a number of years, and to see the two schools coming together, a very classy move by Clairton.
Yeah, and that was the highlight for Jeanette. The low light was that it was a 43-0 victory for the Bears as they claim the conference championship. Jeanette finishes the season at 1-9. Dairy Area goes 0-9 as the Trojans lose to the other Trojans, that being North Catholic, which remains undefeated, now 10-0 after a 67-13 victory for North Catholic. Although Dairy Area did score against the North Catholic Trojans, that is a rarity. You can go back and listen to both of those broadcasts. Other scores from around Westmoreland County: Penn Trafford took care of business, defeating Greater Latrobe 42-0 as the Warriors finish on a high note. Gateway defeats Franklin Regional 56-9. Tough finish for the Panthers. They are playoff bound, but they were on the wrong end of a couple of lopsided games down the stretch. We'll hear from their head coach, Lance Getsy, in just a little while. Kiski area concludes the season with a winning record, but outside of the playoffs, they fall to Penn Hills 42-22. So the Cavaliers 6-4, but their season comes to an end. South Allegheny, a little surprising, an upset victory to an extent, 21-7 over Mount Pleasant area. It did not really cost the Vikings too much. They still got a pretty good seed. They knew they were already in the playoffs, but that's not the way you want to go in on a loss. That was the case last year as well. They lost their final two games. But give credit to the Gladiators. And by the way, that was the last ever game at Glassport Stadium for South Allegheny. That's, they needed to win to get in. They needed to kind of send off that stadium on the right note. They did that. The Vikings were unfortunately on the other side of it, and now they'll have to try to bounce back. A team that needed to win in all likelihood to get into the playoffs, the Southmoreland Scotties, they did just that. A great fourth quarter, 28-14 defeating South Park. They now sit at 7-3 and qualify for the 3A playoffs. We'll hear from their head coach, Dave Kiefer, but man, that's a thrilling victory to face a fourth quarter deficit, knowing that you probably need to win to get into the playoffs, and they did just that.
Big-time victory. Congratulations to the Scotties. Again, they went 40 years not heading to the WPIAL playoffs. They got there a couple of years ago for the first time to break that streak, and now they're back in it. And who knows? If they could find some fire, they can make some noise.
And remember, in 2019, they really sputtered down the stretch. They lost their 5 regular season games heading into the playoffs. Well, this time they go in on victory, so we'll see if that pays off potentially this upcoming week. Elizabeth Forward continues its hot run, defeating York 49-8. The Burrell Buccaneers get into the postseason. They do so by beating a rival. This was a terrific game, and Burrell prevails 19-14 over Valley. Just 3 wins for the Bucks, but they all came in conference. That means they are in the postseason. They needed some help, and they got that with Deer Lakes losing to Freeport. On the other side, Valley, which was already eliminated, falls to 2-8. But the biggest takeaway for the Vikings, their longtime head coach, Muzzy Colosmo, announced that he is retiring from coaching. And I know that he didn't have maybe great success at Valley. He certainly had great success prior to that at Greensburg Central Catholic.
Yeah, he did. And as a matter of fact, really the first year I started broadcasting games for, what were they back then? Sam FM 107.1, now WHJB. That was the year, 2009, that Greensburg Central Catholic finally won the WPIAL championship. They were close many times with Muzzy. They won it that year with Trent Hurley and David Miller and company. And then they played in the state championship that year in a complete whiteout blizzard and ended up losing a close game. But congratulations to Coach Muzzy. He is certainly involved not only at Valley but at the Westmoreland County Coaches Association, and certainly someone that has coached a number of young men in this area.
Yeah, and again, a terrific career for him that has seemingly come to an end. Ligonier Valley needed to win in all likelihood to get into the playoffs. They knew with the win they would at least guarantee the 3rd spot. They did just that against Apollo Ridge, 48-22. Got a lot of seniors involved in that one. So the Rams now sitting at 8-2 and yet finished 3rd in their conference. That is a really, really good team that's hopefully getting a little bit healthier. We'll hear from Roger Beitel in just a little bit. Once again, 48-22 Ligonier Valley over Apollo Ridge. It was a fun offensive fireworks show between Leechburg and Greensburg Central Catholic. Maybe a little bit lower scoring than maybe someone anticipated, but 31-27 Leechburg defeats GCC, two playoff-bound teams. That was a fun one, as Marco Thomas, the head coach for GCC, we'll talk about in just a little bit. The final Westmoreland County team to play gets into the postseason. That's the Monessen Greyhounds. They defeat Avella 14-6. Wasn't pretty, but Monessen at 4-6 returns to the playoffs. And two college scores from around Westmoreland County from this past week. Cal U, one of the top teams in all of Division II football, defeats Seton Hill 42-14. You can go back and watch that one. The Griffins now below 500 at 4-5. And Carnegie Mellon beats up on St. Vincent 34-7. Flick, any takeaways from the Griffins' loss?
Yeah, it was just a terrible start. And what more can you say? Cal U actually scored 4 times in a span of 4 minutes in the first quarter. They got the Griffins to go 3 and out. They went down and scored. Then Seton Hill fumbled the ensuing kickoff. Cal U turned it into points again. Then a pick 6 on the next drive for Seton Hill. I mean, it was a terrible start. I thought they finished much better than they started. They did have the last score of the game. But you can't do that against any team, especially California, the number 4 ranked team in the country. And, you look at the Seton Hill defense, they've been terrific stopping the run all season long. They did that against California, but the Vulcans barely ran the ball. They have a veteran quarterback, threw the ball all over the field, and certainly gave them some short fields too, which you can't do. So we'll see if the Griffins can rebound against an IUP team that maybe isn't quite as good as it usually is. So hopefully they can have some success against the Crimson Hawks on Saturday.
Still a really, really good team.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, they're still another level, but maybe they're here, maybe not there.
Absolutely. That'll do it for the Week 9 scores. Let's take a look at the top performers from around the WPIAL, the top passer, rusher, and receiver across the entire district, and some of the top performers from here in Westmoreland County. Top passer, 382 yards for Jaron Brickner of Beaver Falls. 382 yards on 11 completions. That's pretty ridiculous in terms of his percentage there. He is the leading passer. Amongst Westmoreland County performers, Luke Lewandowski, our player of the week for the Norway Knights, 12 of 19 for 220 yards in the victory against Hempfield area. Behind him, Broderick Schreier of Ligonier Valley started the season as the backup quarterback. He's the man now, 8 of 14 for 200 yards. Tyree Turner also started the season as the backup at Greensburg Central Catholic. He throws for 159 in the loss on 8 of 17 passing. Anthony Govern of Southmoreland, they needed him to be big. He throws for 136 for the Scotties in their victory. And Carter Green, who has really developed a little bit as the season has gone along as a passer, just 4 of 8, but goes for 110 yards for Penn Trafford. Top rusher is Ian Siam of Avonworth, 215 yards on the ground for the Antelopes. Quentin Martin of Bell Vernon area not far behind, as the outstanding sophomore goes for 206 yards on the ground for the Leopards. Caden DiCaprio of the Borough Buccaneers, 153 yards rushing. Cade Iacomelli does it again for Penn Trafford, 125 on the ground. And Xavier Wilson of Valley, 112 yards. The top receiver from the final week of the WPIAL regular season is Rayon Strader of Penn Hills, 4 receptions for 200 yards. I can do that math. 50 yards per reception for Strader to lead the way. Top receiver in Greensburg Central Catholic's Nate DeLugos for Westmoreland County representatives. Now remember, he started the season as the quarterback. He's a pretty darn good receiver too. 6 receptions, 153 yards. Grant Dowden for Ligonier Valley, 3 catches, 142. And Jackson Pons of the Norway Knights, 5 catches for 127. That'll do it for the top performers from Week 9 of the WPIAL season. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will have the always popular plays of the week. And upcoming later, we'll run down all of the playoff brackets and have 6 coaches' interviews to get you set for this upcoming weekend. That's as we roll along right here on Westmoreland and the Gridiron, the special playoff edition.
We know speaking with your teen or your young adult about drugs and alcohol can be challenging, but is necessary. Remember to have a conversation, not a confrontation. Establish good communications, break through barriers, and be firm but loving. Here are some helpful tips. Choose a good place and time to chat. Talk with openness. Actively listen. Offer empathy and support. For more information, visit us online at wedacinc.org. Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. Prevention is key.
The all-new 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander at Sindel Mitsubishi. Drive one today for $239 a month, plus an industry-leading 10-year warranty. The all-new Outlander at Sindel Mitsubishi. Get thunderstruck.
And we roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean and Dan coming to you from Seton Hill University. It is the special playoff edition, part 1, here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. We'll get to the entire brackets in just a little bit and interviews with Lance Getsy, Jason Fazekas, Sean Liotta, Dave Kiefer, the Southmoreland version, Roger Beidel, and Marco Thomas. That's all still to come. We're also going to have Plays of the Week momentarily, but before we get into that, Flick, it's a little bit different because we're trying to cram in the regular season with looking ahead to the playoffs. We had the final Player of the Week voting, and ultimately it was the quarterback for the Norwin Knights who prevailed.
Yeah, and Dave Brzezinski always talks about how hard of a worker Luke Lewandowski is, and of course we talked to him for our training camp previews a few months ago. Seems like it was just yesterday, and it's a long time ago now. He completed 11 of 18 passes for 184 yards, 2 touchdowns, also ran for a touchdown in that victory against the Hempfield Spartans. So since we're changing some things around, we have a bunch of coaches' interviews to get to. We want to preview the playoffs. I had a chance to talk with Luke. You can listen to that interview on our YouTube channel, along with all of the players that we have interviewed all season long for our Player of the Week. You can go to our YouTube channel right now, either go to youtube.com or on our website. If you click on more videos, it'll take you right to our YouTube channel. Luke's a really good kid, again, a hard worker, so please do, after our show, go ahead and head to our YouTube channel and listen to what he had to say about the right way that the Knights closed out the season. Certainly disappointing, but did it in the right fashion. Also this week, Grant Dowden had a huge game for Ligonier Valley, caught 3 passes for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, also rushed for a touchdown and made an interception on defense. He was everywhere for the Rams. That was a big game for him, and we already talked about Devin Whitlock. My gosh.
Yeah.
2 touchdowns through the air. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He returned a touchdown on a punt in the victory for the Leopards over the McKeesport Tigers. And again, we want to congratulate all of our Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week winners all season long, and everyone that was nominated and everyone who voted, of course.
And Bell Vernon played 8 games. I would think Devin's been on there at least 5 times this year, I
think so. I think so. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I thought I was hoping that Devin would win one of those weeks because, let's face it, when you put up the numbers, not only the numbers, but the plays that he makes for Bell Vernon, he certainly deserved to win one of those weeks. But the voters speak, and again, we congratulate everyone that did win this season.
Yeah, and ultimately, whether he wins player voting or not, I think the only thing he cares about is winning a championship.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
I think he'll be just okay as long as the Leopards take care of business. Well, that'll create a transition to the always popular Plays of the Week segment, and we will begin with the Bell Vernon area Leopards. As the aforementioned Devin Whitlock, he has been perhaps the most exciting player in the WPIAL this season, and he showed that again and again on Friday against McKeesport.
And again.
And again. He provided a must-see play that ultimately resulted in a 57-yard touchdown to put the Leopards ahead 26-0 in the second quarter, as called by this guy, Dan Flickinger and Jack Ridenauer.
Oh, I am juiced up for this game. I've been thinking about this since Monday. It's Friday at 7:47.
Well, I'm glad I didn't put you anywhere else this week, Jack, that's for sure. Whitlock going to escape pressure here, at least try to the right side. Oh, here we go. Whitlock comes to the left now. Devin Whitlock buying time, going to air one out, and it's caught! Touchdown! Devin Whitlock has done it again, and getting open was Jake Jetico. Unbelievable stuff shown by Devin Whitlock. Are you kidding me?
For the people at home that can't see Dan and I up in the booth, I am completely puzzled at a loss for words. I mean, look at this. He's got so much time, great blocking, and again, the elusiveness. He's able to avoid defenders, always keeps his head downfield. That's a great thing about Whitlock, is that he's always looking deep downfield, a little bit of a wobbly ball, but again, he's able to allow his receivers to get time to get open, and again, Jetico with a big score. He has been a huge piece to this team, especially like you mentioned, Dan, with Martin going down earlier this year, but wow, is Whitlock fun to watch.
He's playing a video game, Sean. He's himself. He's in the video game while he's playing it. I mean, it's honestly unbelievable. That was just one of several of those types of plays that he made in that game. And a great job by Jake Jetico, too, getting open and being able to make himself available for a guy that was scrambling around. Those Leopards receivers are used to doing that when Devin gets on the move like that. But, I mean, he is just a human highlight reel.
And I think you could tell that you knew something was going to happen.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. You could just tell, and really, I wasn't looking downfield at all. I was just looking at Devin, but you just knew he was going to find somebody open. I can't. It's hard to describe. It really takes your breath away every time he's out there.
Yeah, and he still hopefully has a lot more football to play this season, and of course, don't forget, we get to see him all basketball season.
That's
do
true.
what he does. He's
Very
terrific.
true.
Terrific. We continue plays of the week with Norwin as the Knights. They missed the playoffs, but they finished on a high note and wasted little time in doing so against Hempfield area. On the first play from scrimmage, the aforementioned Luke Lewandowski and Dom Barca connected to put Norwin in the lead as Dave Franzak and Tim McCabe detail.
Fake the handoff, and Lev wants to throw it. He wants it all on first down. The first play from scrimmage, and that's Dom Barca in stride. One play, and it's a score of 52 yards.
Yeah, it looked like the exact same play that Norwin used against Cannon Mack on 4th and 7 late in the game. Just a go route to Dom Barca. He fakes like a little in-route, stop route, and turns it on down the hash mark. Beautiful ball by Lewandowski from the 40-yard line. Barca just does a little up, stop, and go. And Lewandowski puts the ball right on the money. Beautiful pitch and catch for the Knights on the first play of the game.
What a great start for the Norwin Knights, and again, they missed the playoffs, but I can tell you, if there's one game I think they wanted to win all season long, it's against Hempfield.
It was this one. I mean, I talked with, Dave Franzak spoke with Coach Brzeski. I spoke with Coach Brown before the game. And
who stepped up once again as Cody Rubrick showed that he can also return kickoffs, going 82 yards to put the Golden Lions ahead of Plum 20-13 midway through the second quarter, with TJ DeStefano and Chris Smith painting that picture.
Woo. And turned it into points. Rubrick at the 20.
Got a hole.
30, 35, 40. Cody Rubrick just has to beat the punter. Cody Rubrick is going to take it for the Greensburg-Salem touchdown.
No laundry out there.
And what did I say, Chris? He started at about the 20.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, just put it on one of your leaders, and you could just tell Rubeck saw the hole, and the kicker just took an awful angle to try to cut him off, and he wasn't going to catch Rubeck anyway. I mean, he was running on all 8 cylinders right there, untouched to the house, just like that, and that's what you need. Yep. You need that kind of response from one of your upperclassmen, a junior. I believe that's his 11th touchdown this season, so no stranger to finding pay dirt.
TJ, I can almost guarantee is tuning in right now, very happy to hear himself featured.
Yes.
And I'm sure that had to hurt he and Chris a little bit to see that outcome,
yeah,
right?
A couple of former Golden Lions on the call there, but Chris called me after the game like he usually does, and like I usually do, I don't answer because I'm usually still on the air or picking stuff up, cleaning stuff up, or wherever we are. But he said, hey, man, even though Greensburg-Salem lost, it was a great game. And Cody Rubrick, another kid that could have certainly won Player of the Week. He was nominated a bunch of times this year. He put up some huge numbers along with Hayden Teska.
Yeah, and I believe from what I saw going into the game at least, he finishes as the leading receiver in the WPIAL in terms of yardage, and he has another year of eligibility. Now, he's going to have to do it with a different quarterback. Hayden Teska moves on, but man, what a great season for Cody Rubrick, who, by the way, was out almost all of last year with injury. So what a comeback performance for him. He did everything he could, unfortunately, just not quite enough. That'll do it for Plays of the Week. We'll take a break, but when we return here on the very special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron, we will run down all of the brackets and we will begin our 6 coaches interviews. You want to stick around. Up first, Lance Getsy of Franklin Regional. That's upcoming as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
This is how far we'll go to treat heart, lung, and vascular disease. 15 millimeters. At Excella Health, we believe less can be more. That's why we use minimally invasive surgery in the treatment of coronary artery disease, heart valve repair and replacement, lung cancer, and conditions of the peripheral arteries. For our patients, that means less blood loss, less post-operative pain, and a faster recovery. It means that a disease process that took decades to develop can, in a few hours, be reversed. And for us, it means providing the most advanced and sophisticated care for patients in our region. The Heart, Lung, and Vascular Institute at Excella Health. Expert care here.
You're always on the winning team with Bowser Chevrolet of Monroeville and Bowser Chevrolet Chippewa. Visit BowserChevrolet.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the power of Bowser in your hands. With the new Chevy vehicles arriving weekly, reserve yours now at Bowser Chevrolet. See the full lineup of Chevy cars, trucks, and SUVs at BowserChevrolet.com. Bowser Chevrolet, where the power of Bowser is yours.
And we continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, the special playoff edition, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Sean and Dan here at Seton Hill University. And let's unveil the brackets. Well, I guess they've technically been unveiled, but let's run them down and kind of analyze them a bit. We'll begin in 6A, and this will not take long. Unfortunately, there was no Westmoreland County representatives. The two teams, Norwin and Hempfield area, both on the outside. It is a 5-team bracket. Little interesting wrinkle this year as the number 1 seed, Mount Lebanon Blue Devils, they get a bye to the semifinals, and they will host the winner of number 5, Cannon McMillan, and number 4, North Allegheny. They do battle this Friday at North Allegheny as the Tigers, the higher seed, or the better seed more accurately, will host that one. On the other side of the bracket, it's a couple of byes. Number 2, Pittsburgh Central Catholic. Number 3, Seneca Valley. So those teams will meet in the semifinals. They will do so at Baldwin High School. So if you break it down, there is one total game taking place this week in Class 5A. North Allegheny against Cannon Mac. The other 3 teams have byes. They will sit around and rest up. And I always think that's kind of interesting. Are you better off sitting around and kind of not playing? Now, you get healthier, but by the same token, I think coaches like to play most weeks.
Well, I think it worked out for Bell Vernon last week, too. They looked pretty fresh to start out the game. And yeah, I mean, I think coaches do enjoy playing for sure, but they can simulate some things, especially the 6A schools, Sean. I mean, they can simulate some things in practice that maybe the 1A and 2A schools, maybe even 3A schools can't do because of a lack of players. I think it'll be okay. But, man, every other classification was probably pretty difficult, especially 5A it always is, to put together. 6A, I have a feeling they were just like, okay, it probably took like 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was already determined
exactly.
It was already determined by the records. Here's a notable thing for Westmoreland County. We don't have any teams in the bracket, but it will be the venue. Norwin High School will host the championship, and this is significant. It is a week earlier than all of the other brackets. It will be Saturday, November 20th, a Saturday night, 7 o'clock kickoff at Norwin High School to crown the 6A champion. So if you're in the area and you want to check out a championship game, it's probably a little bit easier to go to Norwin than it is to make the trek maybe down to Heinz Field for some of those games. Now let's look at the 5A bracket, and we have some Westmoreland County representation here. We'll begin with the number 1 seed. It's the Moon Tigers. What a great regular season for a team that probably not many people expected to be the top seed. They finish a perfect 10-0. They get the first round bye, as does the number 2 seed, the Penn Trafford Warriors. And we'll talk to head coach John Rowane next week before their matchup. They will play either number 7 Upper St. Clair or number 10 Fox Chapel area. That will take place this Friday at Upper St. Clair. But for Penn Trafford, I think you say, okay, we get maybe a little bit healthier. we get to see who we're going to play, but it's going to be a tough opponent. I think this is a really deep 5A bracket.
Yeah, it always is, and they're going to play the winner of Upper St. Clair and Fox Chapel, and you're right. I mean, Upper St. Clair, there are some people saying that, if they can get past that first round against Fox Chapel, look out for the Panthers.
They're a good team.
Certainly a dangerous team. You look back at the beginning of the season for Penn Trafford. Now they win, the 2 games over Norwin and Hempfield, and then they have a slip up against Bell Vernon and Peters Township, 2 really good teams. You talk about a slip up, but I think ever since then they have been getting better week after week. They beat Gateway 15-10. Their defense has been good all year. But as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, Carter Green seems to be finding his footing in terms of the passing game. He seems to be much more comfortable. I talked to him last week, and he said it was coming along, and he does feel a lot more confident than he did at the beginning of the season. So it'll be really interesting to see how much noise this Penn Trafford team can make, because let's be honest, this is a team that has been there and done that in the playoffs, but they haven't quite won that WPIAL championship yet, and that's certainly something that they're aiming for this year.
And we mentioned they will play the winner of 7-10. Moon, the number 1 seed, will play the winner of 8 versus 9. That's Bethel Park against Woodland Hills. The Wolverines, of course, from the Big East Conference. That also includes Penn Trafford. That will take place at Bethel Park.
And Sean, we could, in a couple of weeks, depending on what happens, could have a rematch of Penn Trafford Pine Richland in the semifinals if both teams can get there.
Yeah, that's because Pine Richland is the number 3 seed and earns a bye. And by the way, I just heard that Pine Richland's going to stay in 5A for the next couple of years.
So that's very surprising. I was surprised they dropped in the first place.
Yeah, not great news for the rest of the 5A teams potentially, but the Rams, after a slow start, they get the number 3 seed and a bye. They will await the winner of number 6 North Hills and number 11 Peters Township. That will be at Martirelli Stadium, which is the home venue for North Hills. Keep this in mind, however. Peters Township, the number 11 seed, but I think that they can probably win the championship if they get hot.
Yeah, and could you imagine that happening? I mean, I can't imagine it happening, but a number 11 seed, they beat Penn Trafford earlier this year. I think they're talented enough, right, to again, make some noise.
Yeah, they go 2-3 in the Allegheny 6 Conference, and that's what concerns me, because I was talking to you and I said it's not going to be easy for Penn Trafford to win a playoff game because, okay, we know Peters Township was, I think, clearly the better team when they went against Penn Trafford earlier this season. Peters Township finished 2 spots below Upper St. Clair in the conference. Yeah. So I think even though the committee gave maybe a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to the Big East Conference, I think this Allegheny 6 Conference was absolutely loaded with Moon, Upper St. Clair, Bethel Park, and Peters Township this season. The other team that gets the bye, that's number 4 Gateway, as the Gators move on to play the winner of number 5 Penn Hills and number 12 Franklin Regional, as the Panthers get the lowest seed, or the worst seed, if you will, of this 12-team bracket. They will go against Penn Hills on Friday at UHAS McGinley Stadium. That's at Penn Hills Senior High School. And for the Panthers, we're going to hear from their head coach momentarily with Lance Getze, but not a great finish to the season. They knew they were already in heading into the final week, but they go in losing a couple of lopsided games.
Yeah, they lose 3 of their last 4 games, and that game against Woodland Hills, you're hoping that they could maybe take the victory there. They lose 37-21, that thrilling victory over Latrobe, but they, the final 2 games of the year for Franklin Regional, certainly very, very tough opponents in Penn Trafford and Gateway. But if you're a playoff team, Sean, you're hoping that you can compete a little bit better against those 2 teams. Not exactly that you lose, but you can compete a little bit better, and they didn't do it. 49-7 loss to PT, 56-9 loss to Gateway, and I know, again, they have a clean slate, as we've been saying, but, man, those are a couple of lopsided losses to take into the playoffs with you.
Yeah, and this is a pretty good Penn Hills team that goes 6-3, including 4-1, and they tie both North Hills and Pine Richland. So ultimately, Pine Richland, I think you say, okay, track record gives the Rams the benefit of the doubt. They get the 3 seed in the bye. Penn Hills is seeded 5th, even though, again, they tied Pine Richland because the head-to-head went in favor of the Rams 21-14. So Penn Hills has to play this first-round game, and I'm sure they want to take it out on Franklin Regional. And for the Panthers, as I will talk to Coach Getze momentarily, just getting to the playoffs, I think that's what you need to do when you're a first-year head coach and you come into a program that has great tradition. Remember, the Panthers missed the playoffs last year in the final season for Coach Botta. So just getting there, I think, will be a big step.
Yeah, and we say that a lot with teams. Some people will say, hey, you get to the playoffs, but look what's going to happen to them. Yes, maybe that's true, not necessarily with Franklin Regional I'm talking about, but with anybody. You get to the playoffs, but look, they're going to lose in the first round. And that might be true for some teams, but again, just getting to the postseason is big. And when you're Lance Getsy trying to, I don't want to say turn the program around, but continue to try to build it back into maybe what it was a decade ago, these are the types of things you need to do, make the playoffs, and then go from there.
Yeah, you could always pencil Franklin Regional into the playoffs, and you can usually pencil in a win for them in the playoffs when you talk about going back a decade or so. It hasn't been the case recently. We'll see if they can get it done on Friday. Here's something to pay attention to: the health of the Panthers, because Aiden Hudock has been banged up. He tried to play on Friday, didn't even make it through the whole game. They need him. They need Caden Smith to be healthy and at his best, because, quite frankly, they're probably not going to match up talent-wise if you take those two out of the lineup.
And that's what the shame is, too. If you have Hudock in the lineup, then you have a chance to hit some big plays, and certainly with Caden Smith, too. But when you only have one of those guys, the defense can focus on one of those guys and take them out. When you have both of them, you can hit some big plays. Unfortunately, Hudock not trying to play last week and not being able to finish the game, that doesn't necessarily make me feel real good that he's going to be healthy to play against Penn Hills. I mean, we'll see what happens. It's a playoff game. I'm sure he'll try to gut it out as best as he can. But when you're in a game like this, a 12 versus a 5 seed, you need to have your big play guys there, because I think that's maybe the only way you can get a victory or stay in the game, especially if you hit some big plays to those guys.
And one thing that I did mention to Coach Getsy after our interview is I said, one of my first years broadcasting high school football, I went to Penn Hills for a playoff game, and they were heavily favored against my alma mater, the Plum Mustangs, and Plum pulled off the upset. Yeah. So it can happen. Now, it was a different era back then because it was Quad A. There was 4 classifications. The playoffs were set up a little bit differently, but it's one of those things where you just never know. And, 5 looks to be heavily favored against number 12. Penn Hills comes in winning 4 straight. The Panthers have sputtered down the stretch. But, again, all you need is to play 48 good minutes of football and see if you can at least hang around and set up to try to pull off the upset as you get to the fourth quarter. I had a chance to talk to the first-year head coach, Lance Getsy, of the Franklin Regional Panthers. Let's now hear that interview with the head man at FR. Sean Meyers now joined by the first-year head coach for the Franklin Regional Panthers, Lance Getsy. His team in the 5A playoffs will go against the Penn Hills Indians on Friday night. Coach, first off, congratulations in getting to the postseason. We talked a couple of weeks ago after a thrilling victory against Greater Latrobe, 41-40. Since that time, however, you went against a couple of dominant teams, Penn Trafford and Gateway. On a 2-game losing skid, how do you make sure you get things turned around headed into the playoffs?
We just keep getting better at what we do. Our coaches are going to continue to game plan and scheme for the opponents that we're going to face, and we have Penn Hills is going to be another tall task for us, but playoffs, all you have to do is get in. Once you're in, everybody's 0-0. I was just talking to Coach Botta earlier today, and he told me about a time where he was the 16 seed going in and went and upset somebody that was a number 1, and another time when he was a number 1 seed and got upset by the 16 seed. You never know what can happen, and we've been preaching the motto, why not us? So I think our kids are excited, and we're going to go out there and give it our best.
The record 3-7, certainly not pretty, but the fact that you get back to the playoffs, I think, is a big step, because it was a rare year in 2020 in which the Panthers did not qualify. So how important is it for this program to get to the postseason?
Anytime you could get extra games, especially when you're a young team, to get that playing experience is a huge thing. I think a lot of those teams that are on top year after year, part of the reason is that they get those extra games and get those experiences for all the kids on their team. So I think it's huge to be able to just be a part of it, and it's thrilling to be in a game where it's win or go home. So anytime you could be in that type of an environment is an exciting thing for the coaches, the players, and the fans.
Looking at your schedule, you certainly have gone against a number of teams who are now in the playoffs, so you kind of have a little bit of an expectation of what you might see come Friday night. What have you learned, and what has your team learned from start to this season up to this point?
I think that we're learning the game speed. It's hard to prepare against a scout team that's not as experienced and doesn't have the speed, or else they wouldn't be on the scout team. But when you're preparing all week, and then when you get on the field Friday night, the speed changes, and I think that our kids are starting to understand the intensity and how to finish plays. Penn Trafford really taught us that. I thought our kids did a great job coming out against Gateway for the first quarter and a half, played very well, especially defensively. And offensively, we got to get things going a lot better, so to give our defense some breaks. But we played a lot of teams tough this year. I think there's 2 teams that the score is pretty lopsided the last 2 games, but our kids are fighters. They're not going to give up, and I think they're going to show up. And you never know what will happen.
Talking to Lance Getsy, the head coach for the Franklin Regional Panthers, here on the special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We talk about the last 2 weeks. The teams you went against, Penn Trafford gets the number 2 seed and a bye. Gateway gets the number 4 seed and a bye. Your team is the number 12 seed, and that's out of 12 total teams in the bracket. Is that what you sort of anticipated?
Yeah. Just to get in, we were fortunate enough to get in. We did enough to do that, and now that we're here, you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, we definitely were anticipating to be the 12 seed and maybe the 11, depending on where they place everybody else to get a matchup outside the conference. But definitely either 11 or 12, yeah, for sure.
So you go against the number 5 seed Penn Hills Indians. What do you know about that team?
A lot of team speed, physical. Those kids love to hit, and we did a 7-on-7 with them in the summertime. They've coached well. They have a lot of size at the wide receiver position. They have a elusive quarterback, and I think their defensive line is very aggressive and they play very hard. So it's going to be a tall task. It's a team very similar to the Woodland Hills team that we faced. I feel like with a lot of similarities. I think we were breaking down film last night, and the coaches were over my house, and we worked till late hours in the night. And I think we got a pretty good grasp on what we're going to see. We just got to go out and practice and see how our kids respond.
And we mentioned that Franklin Regional missing the playoffs a year ago, so you have to go back to 2019. I'm not sure that there's that many of the players on the team now who were key components for the last time that the Panthers were in a playoff game. But even with that, how much do you lean upon your upperclassmen and your veteran players at a time like this?
You just want them to be leaders and show the younger guys what work ethic is. And so I lean on them a lot. I want them to be the ones that, get the guys fired up. It's all about the kids. You have to have internal leaders amongst the team. All the successful teams that I've seen have always had those players that were leaders and didn't rely on the coaches to do it all the time. So I think we have some. I think we have a group of seniors that really want this and are pulled the kids aside after the Gateway game and said, we're 0-0 now, so let's go out there and get it. And I think they have a hunger, and they're excited to be back in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens.
Lastly, what will be the biggest keys to success against Penn Hills on Friday?
Controlling the ball and making sure we keep their quarterback contained. He likes to take off, but if we could contain him, watch some of their big receivers, and make sure that they don't make big plays on us consistently, and be able to control the ball a little bit to give our defense a break. I think that's going to be the key.
Lance, thanks so much for doing this. Congratulations on getting into the postseason your first year, and good luck on Friday against Penn Hills.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We appreciate Lance Getsy taking the time to talk about his team in the 5A playoffs. And again, with Penn Trafford earning a bye, we'll talk to head coach John Ruane next week before his team's first playoff action. Let's now take a look at the 4A bracket. There's only one Westmoreland County team that made it, but it is certainly a notable one. The Bell Vernon Area Leopards, no surprise, the number 1 seed, and they get a bye and will face the winner of number 8 Highlands or number 9 Newcastle. So the Leopards will play their first game on Friday the 12th. That will take place at the beach against either the Golden Rams or the Hurricanes. Is it the Red Hurricanes?
I think it's the Red Hurricane.
Singular, yes. That gets a little...
Red, like Colorado Avalanche.
Yes,
like
no S on the end of it.
Right.
So for Bell Vernon area, okay, you want to get the number 1 seed. There's no doubt about that. They deserve the number 1 seed. They're the favorites going in. And yet you look at potentially some of the teams that they could face on that side of the bracket. Let's look at them now. Number 4, Hampton will not get a bye, as the Talbots will play the number 13 team in the bracket. That's the Plum Mustangs. Remember, they had to win to get in. They defeated Greensburg-Salem by a field goal to do just that. So Hampton, a team that had a terrific regular season, will host that matchup, the 4 versus 13. Also on that side of the bracket, Thomas Jefferson, the number 5 seed, against number 12 Indiana. And for TJ, a team that has lost 2 conference games, that is a very rare sight. That being said, I think you look at Thomas Jefferson, that might be the biggest challenge potentially for the Leopards down the road.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what a semifinal it could make with Bell Vernon possibly getting there. I would imagine they would take care of business against Highlands or Newcastle. Getting to that semifinal against either probably TJ or Hampton, that could set up for a great semifinal. And really, if Hampton and Thomas Jefferson can get by the first round, that would probably be a great quarterfinal game.
Yeah, you saw Hampton.
Those teams I did. I mean, they are a great running attack. And I know there are some people that say, why did McKeesport get the number 3 seed over Hampton? And I can hear that. I mean, I understand, the complaints there.
10-0.
Yes, they're undefeated. McKeesport, they lost to Canisius in the week that they scheduled them, and of course they lost to Bell Vernon, but every other game was a win for the Tigers this year. So it should really be an interesting side of the bracket there, I think. And when you have TJ and Hampton and Bell Vernon on the left side.
Yeah, and if I'm Bell Vernon, we know McKeesport's a really good team, but I think I would feel a lot more confident if I'm the Leopards having to go against McKeesport as opposed to Thomas Jefferson. Remember, they needed a miraculous comeback to defeat the Jaguars earlier this season, whereas they took care of business pretty easily against McKeesport.
And Sean, going back to that real quick, I don't know if the committee looked at this or not, but this is how games and scores could impact seeding later down the road, and you maybe kind of look at it when it happens and say, it's not a big deal. These 2 teams, Hampton and McKeesport, both played Armstrong. Hampton beat them 21-20. And McKeesport beat them 24-14. Yeah. Does that matter? I mean, both games were relatively close. I don't know, but it may have factored in when you talk about like opponents.
Well, now you're making me believe that Armstrong has a chance as well. We'll get to that side of the bracket.
Why not throw them in there as well?
The number 2 seed goes to Aliquippa as the Quips. Again, this is unbelievable. This is a single-A school that is playing in 4A. They did not really want to be playing in 4A. They wanted to be in 3A. They got forced to play in 4A. They finished 8-1. Including 5-0 in the Parkway Conference. So they get the number 2 seed and a bye. They will await the winner of number 7, Beaver Area, and number 10, Laurel Highlands. That will be on Friday at Beaver High School. Keep in mind, Laurel Highlands, Rodney Gallagher, maybe outside of Devin Whitlock, the most exciting player in the WPIAL this season. We mentioned McKeesport gets a bye as the number 3 seed, maybe a little surprising to some. So the Tigers will host either number 6 Armstrong or number 11 Montour. And you mentioned that Armstrong team pretty good as well. So the teams that we know are already in the quarterfinals: number 1 Bell Vernon area, number 2 Aliquippa, number 3 McKeesport. So 3 teams get byes in what turns out to be a 13-team bracket. A little unusual, sort of how it worked out this year in 4A. So we will again talk to head coach Matt Humbert. That will be next week before their matchup against either Highlands or Newcastle. Let's now look at the 3A bracket, and this one has the most Westmoreland County flavor of them all. We will have 3 interviews upcoming momentarily with the head coaches. The number 1 seed, no surprise, it is a team that is dominated for the last couple of years. Central Valley gets the first round bye. They will face the winner of number 8 Southmoreland and number 9 East Allegheny. We'll get into that matchup in just a little bit. Also on that side of the bracket, number 4 seed Elizabeth Forward gets a bye. The Warriors move on to the quarterfinals, where they will face either number 5 Freeport area or number 12 Ambridge. Unbelievable that the Bridgers are back in the playoffs after having some real struggles in recent years. That's a pretty good Freeport team as well. On the other side of the bracket, the number 2 seed North Catholic. The Trojans have been just downright dominant at times this year. They are 10-0. They have outscored their opponents 433-51. And yet they are the number 2 seed. That tells you how good Central Valley is. North Catholic gets a bye and will face either number 7 Keystone Oaks or number 10 South Allegheny. Those teams will do battle at Dormont Stadium on Friday. Another team that gets a bye is the number 3 seed Avonworth Antelopes. They will await the winner of an all-Westmoreland County battle, number 6 Mount Pleasant area and number 11 Burrell. That will be a home game for Mount Pleasant. So you look at this bracket, 3 total teams, Mount Pleasant area number 6, Southmoreland number 8. They both get to host games, and then Burrell number 11 will go against the Vikings. So you look at this one, and I joked about this. We're guaranteed to have one Westmoreland County team advance at least, because we know that Mount Pleasant and Burrell, the winner, will be moving on to face number 3 Avonworth. Southmoreland gets a home game as well. And, it was an up-and-down season, I think, for both Mount Pleasant and Southmoreland, and yet they get pretty good seeds and they both get home games. So they get rewarded for doing enough this season, even though I don't think either team really consistently played great football from start to finish.
We talked about the incredible atmosphere at Russ Grimm Stadium when we were there a couple of years ago. They played that one of their biggest games really in recent memory against McGuffey, and how exciting that was. This is, I believe, the first playoff game in stadium history, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be, right? 40 years they didn't make the playoffs, so that's going to be a lot of fun, no matter what happens in that game. And I think it should probably be a good game between Southmoreland and EA, and then one of those two teams has to go up against Central Valley. And look for Elizabeth forward, too. I know I saw them play against Mount Pleasant, and they're really good defensively. They're always really good defensively every year, and they have some weapons on offense, too, young weapons that I think make them very intriguing as a team that could make some noise. And I know Central Valley, I mean, if EF is able to sneak by and get by and play Central Valley, that's going to be an incredibly difficult game. But I do think that they're a very, very solid football team at EF.
And one thing that kind of stands out to me is that this is kind of a top-heavy bracket, because you look at Mount Pleasant as the number 6 team. I don't think anyone realistically thinks that they are probably going to win the championship. So you look at, okay, it's probably going to be Central Valley, North Catholic, Avonworth, or EF. I think those are probably the 4 teams in a discussion, whereas we talk about, you look at 5A and you might have almost a dozen teams that could potentially make a run. So I think it is a little bit more top-heavy, and then there's a pretty steep drop-off after maybe the top 3 or 4 teams in this conference. But I want to focus on the Mount Pleasant and Burrell matchup. We're going to hear from both Jason Fazekas for the Vikings and Sean Liotta momentarily, the head coach for the Burrell Buccaneers. This is a rematch. They played in week 0, and it quite frankly was not very close. It was a dominant victory. We have that broadcast. You can go back and watch it. TJ DeStefano, was he on the call then?
I think Chris was.
Yes.
Chris, and was Jack there? I'm trying to remember who
Jack was with me.
Who did color. Because TJ could not do that game, so I'm trying to remember who did color with Chris. I'll maybe think about it. I don't know. I can look back at while we're talking.
He's a one-man show, so I'm sure he could have done it on his own.
That's true.
Anyway.
If it was wrestling, he could have done the entire thing.
So it was a lopsided victory for Mount Pleasant area. That being said, we will see. Coach Liotta is very confident that his team is completely different now and much improved. And what better way to prove it than going against a team that sort of routed them earlier?
They did have some injuries before that game, before that week 0 game. There were a number of players out. I think remember there was like a receiver playing lineman or something. So it's a different Burrell team now. We'll see if that makes a big difference, though, against Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, and for the Vikings, it's about running the football. And quite frankly, I think for the Buccaneers, it's about running the football as well. You look at the season that Caden DiCaprio has had. He goes over 1,200 yards on the campaign, 1,273 to be exact, 14 touchdowns out of the team's 20 total rushing touchdowns. So this is a guy that really lean on to do just about everything offensively, but it was a great defensive effort against Valley that allowed them to get to this point. So let's hear from the 2 head coaches involved in this game. First, Jason Fazekas, the head coach for the Mount Pleasant area Vikings.
Jason, I talked to you before the season, and you said getting back to the playoffs, that's always a goal, but your team wants to take that next step as well. We'll see if that happens on Friday, but to give yourself the opportunity, what does it mean to be back in the postseason field once more?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is true. We always try to set that goal and work for it, and we really realize just how difficult it is to get in. So we're real happy to be in, and we're looking forward to taking that next step here and trying to get some victories in the playoffs. It's actually a real big accomplishment for us to get a home game as well. So we're pretty excited about it right now.
Bit of an up and down season, 2-game winning streak followed by a 2-game losing streak, another 2-game winning streak, and then alternating wins and losses in the final 3 games to wrap up. So how did you evaluate the regular season?
Overall, I thought it was, we're pretty happy with it. It was enough to get us in the playoffs. And of course, there's a lot of things that we'd like to have back and, always trying to get better with it. But, overall, I think, it's getting us close to where we want to be as a program.
When you look at last week, a 21-7 loss against South Allegheny, obviously maybe a little surprising to some because you had a pretty good record going into that one. Now, it did not cost you a postseason berth by any means, but what was your takeaways from Friday night's defeat?
Well, listen, first of all, that South Allegheny team, to us, when we evaluate them and we look at their talent and, the size that they had, I really think they're a good football team. So going in, I thought I liked our chances. I felt like we had a really good plan for it. We knew it was going to be a tough game with what we saw on tape and just how athletic and big their kids are.
Looking at the 3A bracket, the top 4 teams all earned byes: Central Valley, North Catholic, Avonworth, and Elizabeth Forward. And it's a 12-team bracket. You get the number 6 seed. Is that what you anticipated? What was your reaction to that?
We take a look at that a little bit. It's probably about where we thought we were. Yeah, I guess really no big surprises there. It's where we got seeded, so we're going to play where they tell us.
As a whole for this season, what did you think were some of the best strengths of your team, and maybe who were some of the players who stepped up that weren't necessarily expected to be big components?
Well, I think overall what I like best about this team is in a lot of ways I actually think they overachieved, in a lot of different ways. Coming into this year, I think we had about 3 starters back on offense and defense. We weren't really deep. So I just really like how they prepared and how they planned and the effort that they gave. And then it's really nice when you got kids like Aaron Alexson, Robbie Labuda, and Tyler Reese that can, make you some plays there. So I think overall I'm just, real happy with how the kids, just how they tried and the effort they gave, and they were very coachable.
And I would think that most coaches, when you suffer a loss, you want to take something and improve upon it and learn from it. What have you seen from the losses that you'll have to try to improve upon now heading into the postseason?
After you lose, you got to bring it back. You got to get it right. And I think it really comes back to, just making sure you're taking care of yourselves and doing, what you want to do right. So that's what we kind of do to kind of regroup and, get the kids, ready for the next week, is just make sure that what we're doing on both sides of the ball, that we're as good as we can be with it.
Talking to Jason Fazikis, the head coach for the Mount Pleasant area Vikings, before his team goes against Burrell in the first round of the 3A playoffs. So obviously getting to the postseason, that was a big accomplishment. Now that you're in the playoffs, what are some of the biggest keys to have success? Because while coaches can say it's just another game, obviously everyone realizes there's a lot more at stake.
Well, yeah, in a lot of ways it is just another game, right? But, you got to be excited to be in the play. Like I said, we're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to try to, have a plan for each of our opponents whenever we get to them, and, just hope that the kids are going to execute and have a lot of energy when they play.
Typically, the WPIAL likes to try to avoid rematches in the first round of the playoffs. And you did face Burrell earlier this season, but it was a non-conference. It was a 40-7 victory to open this season. How much do you think about that matchup, and how much can you learn from the first time you played this Buccaneers team?
Well, it's going to be the second time we play them, so obviously both teams have, connection with each other, that we kind of have seen each other. But, I've watched them today and, most of last night too, and I can tell that they are a team that definitely got better. So we'll take with what we did the first time and what we think we can do after watching film and try to come up with a good plan to beat them.
Is there something to be said that it is challenging to beat the same team twice in a season?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, we'll try to just go in with what we think is going to be best, on Friday night. I'm not so sure how much of a difference it makes. Like I said, we're happy to be in, and we're going to play whoever they tell us.
To that point, what are some of the biggest keys to victory against Burrell?
Well, you know what? I think that we have to get, our playmakers the ball. We got to find ways to get it to them, to, Alex and Labuda and Tyler Reese. We got a young kid coming on a little bit too, Jackson Hutter. So we got to just find a way to get to it, and I keep telling the offensive line, we just got to keep giving every play a chance, getting into contact, staying in it, and want to try to limit what they're going to do, scoring points on, when we're playing defense. So put it all together, and I think we just have to overall play, good game to beat them.
And lastly, Jason, you mentioned this before. I think it's probably pretty significant that you will be playing this matchup at home. What does it mean to the Mount Pleasant community to get to host a playoff game?
Well, I mean, it means a lot. I think that's probably what we're most excited about. Those home playoff games are hard to come by. You know, it takes a lot of work to get them. Things have to fall into place. So to have one of them, I think it's really big. I think it's going to be good for our school community and for the Mount Pleasant area in general. You know, football's still pretty important to people around here. So I'm really excited that we're going to have a chance to play at home. And I can guarantee you the community is going to be excited about it as well.
Jason, thanks so much as always for taking the time. Congratulations on getting in the playoffs and good luck on Friday.
Yeah, sure thing. Appreciate it.
At D'Annunzio's, our menu is extensive with an abundance of selections. The next best thing to being at one of our 3 locations is having our frozen food and jarred sauce in your own home. For our frozen food selections, we have wedding soup, pasta fagioli, lasagna, stuffed cheese rigatoni, ricotta cavatelli, and potato gnocchi. Our jarred sauces include the original, smooth, marinara, and tomato cream. These products can all be found at our restaurants or your local grocer.
Your next golf adventure awaits at Manor Valley Golf Course in Export. Manor Valley offers 18 scenic holes over gentle sloping fairways and the purest putting surfaces around. Manor Valley Golf Course in Export is the perfect place to host your next golf outing, banquet party, or shower. Manor Valley also offers league play and great membership rates. Tee times available. Call 724-744-4242. Visit ManorValleyGC.com.
At Sendell Mitsubishi, buying your new vehicle is as easy as stop, shop, and roll. Stop wasting time in the dealership. Shop online in just a few easy steps. Roll on home in your new Mitsubishi or have it delivered to your door. SendellMitsubishi.com. At Sendell Volkswagen, buying your new vehicle is as easy as stop, shop, and roll. Stop wasting time in the dealership. Shop online in just a few easy steps. Roll on home in your new Volkswagen or have it delivered to your door. SendellVolkswagen.com.
We appreciate Jason Fizikis taking the time, and we have the answer since everyone is wondering.
Yes, while that coach's interview was going on, I dug deep, very deep, and found Mark Kotarski did the game.
A
with
good
Chris
Mount Pleasant
Smith.
boy.
How can we forget Mark Kotarski? By the way, good luck to him. The women's team at Seton Hill will be starting. Well, they're pretty much starting now. So
yeah, always exciting time of year for Mark Kotarski to patrol the sidelines with his expertise. Well, we heard from one side of this matchup with the number 6 seed Mount Pleasant area and their head coach Jason Fizikis. Let's now hear from the number 11 Burrell Buccaneers head coach Sean Liotta. Really enjoyed him. He has a confidence to him that just makes you believe that his team's going to do something special.
Sean Meyers now joined by another Sean Liotta, the head coach for the Burrell Buccaneers, as his team enters the 3A playoffs with a record of 3-7. And Coach, there's a lot of adages that apply to the sport of football. One is, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. I think that applies to your team because you got off to a rough start, but winning 3 of 4 to wrap up the season was enough to get into the postseason. So how does it feel to be playoff bound after that strong finish?
Well, I'm very proud of our players and staff. I mean, when you look at it, yeah, we started 0-6, but if you look at the teams we played, I mean, we played 6 playoff teams this year, actually 7. You know, when you look at it, really, and 2 of them were 4A playoff participants this year. So we played a very challenging schedule, particularly early on. And we had a lot of young football players in there, a lot of guys that was their first varsity experience, particularly early in the season. So we got better as the season went along. Our kids never wavered. They continued to work hard. They continued to believe. And that's not an easy thing, you know. And, you know, so that's a big credit to our kids, credit to our coaching staff. And, you know, very proud of the way we were able to finish the season 3-1 and, you know, get in here to the playoffs.
You say your team got better. The record obviously indicates that to be true. But specifically, what areas did you see the biggest improvements?
I mean, just all areas. I mean, really, truthfully, I mean, we started to obviously be able to score points and move the football. You know, a little different style of offense we went to kind of take advantage of our ability and the talent of our players. So, that was a little bit of a change from what we've done in years past. So that took a little time to acclimate to. And then defensively, I thought we really have improved, here down the stretch. So, it's really been all phases, and it's just young kids getting a lot of game reps and, getting a lot of experience, and us getting healthy in certain spots where maybe we were, banged up early in the year.
And it really all started with what was a pretty big upset, defeating Deer Lakes on the road, 28-24 for your first win. That was a Lancers team that was riding high. What was the mindset and I guess the reaction for your players after getting that first win in pretty dramatic fashion?
We believed we were the better team, to be honest with you. We had no doubt going into that football game that we were going to win that football game. And, that's the mental aspect of our team. Our guys always believed. Our guys never got down. I've told people, if you came and watched us practice when we were 0-6, you would not know we were an 0-6 football team by the way we practiced and our effort and how hard we prepared. And to be honest with you, it just came down to the fact that late in the year we played teams that we can compete with. Early in the year, we don't make the schedule, and we just play the schedule, and those teams were very, very challenging, early in the year. Particularly, you're talking about 2 4A playoff teams, and we're a small 3A school. So, like I said, our kids never wavered. They came out and gave great effort. And in that game, they believed they were the better team, and they fought, and they battled, and we heard about how Deer Lakes was the first place team in the conference, and we know we beat Deer Lakes the past 2 seasons. So, we weren't intimidated by Deer Lakes. We believed we were the better football team, and to our kids' credit, they went out and did it.
And then you finish up the regular season with a nice little rivalry matchup against neighboring Valley. I know that always has a lot of meaning, but especially when it's a game that you need to win to get into the playoffs. So take me through your perspective of Friday night.
Well, it was pretty much the microcosm of the season, right? So, it was a rivalry game. Again, we had won the last 2 against them as well, so they were hungry. It was Muzzie's last game. They were trying to come in there and upset us on senior night. We had some adversity. We had some guys out of the lineup. We had some guys get injured, late, and we were in a situation where we were down in the football game. But to our kids' credit, when it looked its bleakest, we never flinched. We never wavered. We put a big-time drive together to go down and win and score the lead points with 4 minutes left in the game when we had kind of stalled out, for a while up to that point. And really, Valley had multiple opportunities in that game to put the game away, and our defense rose to the occasion every time. We gave them short fields. I went for it on 4th down in our own end probably about 2 or 3 times, so we didn't get it. And our defense rose to the occasion and kept Valley out of the end zone. And then at the end of the game, our kids made a really big play on stopping their guy yards short of the sticks with about 10 seconds left at about the 10-yard line. So it was just a great team win. And really, that's the way our teams played all year. I say team because it's a team. Everybody contributes. You're not going to come to Burl and see any real superstars or guys that people are talking about, major college guys or anything like that at this point. Maybe later in their careers they will be, but, we're a good football team, and I'm proud of our kids for that.
Talking to Sean Liotta, the head coach for the Burl Buccaneers. Well, everyone knows the name Caden DiCaprio if they followed your team this year. He has been a dynamic player and really the biggest offensive threat all season long. What stands out about him?
Well, he'd probably be one of the best players in any position we would put him. So he's a good football player. He's a good high school football player. He's tough. He's hard-nosed. He's a throwback type player. He takes a beating with the way that we pound him in between the tackles with the football. But he also does an excellent job on defense. He does an excellent job on special teams. He's just he's a great football player, great young man, and it's been certainly a real catalyst for us, here this season.
Who are some of maybe the unsung heroes of players who haven't gotten a lot of headlines but who have been instrumental?
Oh, man, there's so many. You look at the rest of our captains. You have our center, Gavin Thompson, plays center, plays on the D-line. He's been great all year. You look at kid Cam Marmo, who's a tight end for us. He actually got injured in our last game there, but he made a couple big plays for us, including that catch from DiCaprio on the little jump pass. Connor Wojcik is another one I want to mention. Connor was a wide receiver coming into the season. We moved him to guard. He had been playing guard all year. He actually had to change his number. which is a big deal to kids typically, but our kids don't care. They want to win, and they're tough kids. So, he's another one that's really done a good job. Our other senior captain, Ryan Neville, has done a great job on the lines as well. But we've really been blessed with those 5 captains that have really, done a good job for us and kind of led the way.
You will need them and a whole lot more going against Mount Pleasant, because the Vikings were a team that, quite frankly, kind of dominated early in the season when you played them. Now, I know there were some injury issues at the time, but what were your takeaways from that game that you can maybe apply for this matchup the second time around?
Hey, you said it well. Tell Mount Pleasant they don't have anything to worry about with us, right? They already beat us 40-7, so they shouldn't have anything to Mount Pleasant shouldn't have anything to worry about. And this one here, no, I'm just kidding. I mean, they're going to see a different football team. They're going to see a different football team. We're a better football team. We're going up there to compete. We're going up there to beat Mount Pleasant at their place, and that's what we're going to do. That's the mentality we're going. We're going up there. You might say I'm crazy. Well, Coach, you lost 40-7 the first time. I'm just telling you right now, we're not just happy to get in. Like, we're going up there. We plan to go up there and win. That's our expectation, is to go to Mount Pleasant and beat them on Friday night.
Top 4 seeds in 3A earn a bye, and you get the number 11 seed in the 12-team bracket, Mount Pleasant number 6. Is that sort of what you anticipated? How much guessing did you do prior to the announcement of the brackets?
I'll be honest, it didn't matter to us. We're happy to be in, with the way, especially that our kids persevered with the season and the great job that they did to fight and claw and scratch to get in the playoffs. We'd go play on the moon if they told us to, go up there. We would go anywhere. We'd went anywhere to play. It doesn't matter. And that it is Mount Pleasant, hey, look, it's a great challenge. Mount Pleasant's a great football team. Mount Pleasant's a very good football team. They took it to us the first time we played them. They really beat us up. I mean, they really, really took it to us, just point blank. Excellent coaching staff, good players. But I am interested to see this game because I'd like to see how far we've come as the season has went along. I want to see how we've improved, and believe me, we are looking forward to the opportunity to face off with a great program like Mount Pleasant in the playoffs here on Friday.
And, Coach, the best part of us here at the Westmoreland Sports Network having this matchup is that we're guaranteed that a Westmoreland County team will be moving on to the quarterfinals as well.
There you go.
Sean, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations on the strong finish to get in, and good luck on Friday night.
Thank you. Go Bucks.
That's Sean Liotta, the head coach for the Borough Buccaneers here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Flick, a couple of years ago, it seemed to be a breakout season for the Borough Buccaneers, and they won a game, and I believe were celebrating afterwards, thinking they had made the playoffs.
Yeah.
It did not come to fruition. There were some crazy circumstances where, 8 different things needed to happen for them to miss out, and all 8 of those happened. So I believe, actually, if I'm correct, I'm trying to go back in my mind here, I think the team that got in instead of them was Mount Pleasant.
Yes.
And
you are right. You're correct.
And so now they have a chance to get a little bit of redemption, not only for that, and now, of course, most of those players weren't there, but the head coach was,
right,
and for the loss earlier this season. And the coach doesn't go out on the field, but I think his attitude sometimes can sort of spur the team on.
Yeah, I think so.
And he's the type of guy, and we'll hear from another one in Coach Dave Kiefer at Southmoreland, whose energy just exudes. But Coach Liotta, his confidence, I think his demeanor can carry over to the team having some swagger.
Yeah, and especially at this level, at this age. I mean, you're a coach, but you're also a father type figure to some of these players. So when you're a leader of young men like this, they're looking for someone that they can kind of emulate. And, Sean Liotta's always been like that. He's always had that confidence, whether they're losing or winning. And the kids, that gives them belief. And, I hope it's a good game between these two.
He's a bit of an offensive guru as well, and he's had to go away from maybe the style of play he likes to see.
Yeah. Alex Arledge throwing the ball all over the field.
Instead it's been a lot of DiCaprio running, but that's what you need to do, right? You have to use the players and their best strengths, and certainly they did just enough to get into the playoffs. So that will be a 6 versus 11 matchup. And then the other Westmoreland County team, Southmoreland, again, they will host East Allegheny and our friend Don Pecora, who knows all about Southmoreland. So you look at that matchup, and I remember back when we talked to Anthony Govern before the season, when we were doing our camp previews. You can still check out that video, by the way. Southmoreland is by far the most popular of our videos. And I just remember him saying 2019 was great because we got to the playoffs, but it did not go the way we wanted at the end of the season. No one was happy to finish on a 6-game losing streak. They're not going to have that this year. They have a win going into the playoffs. How big would it be with all the hype around that season? This one not quite as hyped for them to get that playoff win.
Again, it doesn't matter what happens in the next round. To win a home playoff game, I remember, it seems like a long time ago now, 2016 when Derry hosted its first home playoff game since the 80s.
Against Central Valley, by the way.
Central Valley. And it's really crazy to think, Sean, I think I texted you this not long ago, that or maybe it was Dan Schieffel I sent this text to, one of you guys. I said Derry beat Central Valley in 2016, so 5 years ago, pretty handily. And then a couple years later, they beat them again handily at home. And now look what Central Valley is and what Derry's doing. It's just crazy to think. But to host a playoff game, the atmosphere is going to be unbelievable. I think back to that Derry game against Central Valley. And then to win, if Southmoreland can do it, I mean, man, it doesn't matter what happens against Central Valley in the next round. Just being able to do that will give you just a memory of a lifetime, really.
And if that does happen, and you don't jump the gun, but if it does happen, I can only imagine the reaction from head coach Dave Kiefer. He's going to literally run through a brick wall, I would think.
He might explode. Like, we might not be able to interview him next week.
Hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, let's hope
do
he's
not
okay.
explode. And
But
I know
he's a lot of fun to watch.
He's not going to think about that whatsoever until that final whistle sounds, if it does go in their favor. Again,
right.
EA is a solid team in its own right.
And good luck to Dom, too. He's a Westmoreland County guy.
Yeah, he is. He is. Trafford.
Yes.
Dom's Pizzeria.
Yes, sir.
So let's take a chance now. Let's take the opportunity now to talk to the head coach for the Southmoreland Scotties, the always excitable Dave Kiefer.
Coach, congratulations on getting to the postseason for the second time in 3 years. You had to work for it. A crucial game and a victory against South Park, 28-14. What was the atmosphere like after that victory when you knew you had secured that spot?
It was a pretty exciting atmosphere, but I think that the kids understand that, they're getting to the point that they feel that they expect to get in the playoffs. So, told them, I said, hey, let's celebrate tonight, and then we'll back to work tomorrow. So, we have to get back to business as soon as possible.
You were the head coach during the historic 2019 campaign when you ended that long playoff drought that dated about 40 years. How much different is this year now getting back to the playoffs?
As I mentioned, it's much different. I mean, that was like, you get that monkey off your back, and then now, it was a little bit less celebratory. I mean, you're obviously excited any time that you make the playoffs. The excitement back in 2019 was I think, just almost out of relief. It finally had happened, and then, so we're looking forward to this year, set new precedent, hopefully, winning playoff games.
And the way that it's come about is a little bit different as well, because you got off to such a great start that year, but then kind of sputtered down the stretch going with a long losing streak heading into the postseason. This year you've won 4 of the last 5. Do you feel like your team is playing its best football now?
Yeah, I think we're playing pretty well. I thought Friday was one of our more of our complete games over the last few weeks. Against a quality opponent, and I was happy to see us playing with the intensity that we played with, and executing like we did.
Talking to Dave Kiefer, the head coach for the Southmoreland Scotties. When we came to training camps before the season and interviewed a number of different players, Anthony Govern was one of the more enjoyable interviews that I had. And it really stood out to me that, he was obviously a talented player at a number of positions, but he was going to succeed at quarterback because I thought he was a leader.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that rang true. Especially during Friday night's game. Anthony really stepped things up in the fourth quarter, and along with several other seniors such as Corey Ansel, Josh Bass, Isaac Trout, and J.J. Bloom really put the team on their back and really stepped up, as I mentioned, to finish off South Park.
What do you think some of the best strengths of this team are?
I think we have pretty good team speed. Our secondary, I got some track kids, playing the secondary and the linebacker core. we're fairly athletic. We're not overly big. We have Corey Ansel. He's a big kid, but I think team speed is probably the best that we've had since I've been here. This being my 4th year.
And in 3A playoffs, the top 4 teams all earned byes. It was a 12-team bracket. You get the number 8 seed, which is notable because that means you play host to number 9 East Allegheny. What was your reaction to getting that seed?
I honestly thought we were going to be a little bit higher. As you mentioned, we ended up season finished 4 out of 5. We're a 7-3 team. But I'm very happy we got a home playoff game. This has never, that's never happened in Southmoreland in its history. So just looking forward to hosting this week and and get ready for the Wildcats.
You mentioned the atmosphere in 2019 getting to the playoffs, but now you get to have this home game, and to some extent, I think probably your team is favored a little bit as the better seed. So what's the atmosphere like around the area now?
The atmosphere is really good. I think the community and the school district understand the importance of this, and it seems as like if everybody's pretty pumped up to host a home game for the first time.
What do you know about East Allegheny?
They have good team speed also. They got a nice quarterback, number 3, kid that we have to make sure we have to try to contain. They have a kid on defense, number 58, comes off the ball hard, strong kid, big, nice size, 6'4". I think he's like 225, 230, pretty aggressive. So we just have to I think defensively try to contain their playmakers, and they run a spread. As I mentioned, I think everything goes through number 3 for them. So we just got to come up with a game plan that's going to play on our strengths, and then hopefully stop their playmaking ability.
The number 1 seed, Central Valley, awaits the winner. I know that will be a difficult challenge for any team that goes against that team. But to get that opportunity potentially to advance, what will be the biggest keys to move on?
I'm not even concerned about Central Valley right now. I mean, that's what we're going to focus on this week to even make that happen. So we got to have a good week of practice. We got to have some good film study, and then get ready to play that game Friday.
Dave, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations on getting back to the playoffs, and good luck on Friday against EA.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
So we appreciate Dave Keefe for the Southmoreland version for talking. That wraps up the 3A bracket, but we are far from done. Let's move on to 2A, where we have another Westmoreland County representative. The number 1 seed, and by the way, this is a throwback bracket, if you will. 16 teams.
What? 16 teams?
There are no byes.
I remember that.
Yes, it's like how it used to be, I would say. So this is, I guess, the most traditional of all the brackets. 16 teams, so every team plays a first-round matchup. Steel Valley, a little surprising maybe that the Ironmen get the number 1 seed. They will go against Bethlehem Center, Best Center, as they are commonly known. That will be at Steel Valley's Campbell Field on Friday. They will face, or the winner of that one, I should say, will face either number 8 Southside, and if you're not familiar, it's sometimes called Southside Beaver, sometimes called Southside Area. It's in Beaver County. That's really the biggest takeaway. Southside will play host to number 9 Ligonier Valley. So the Rams, in their second year back in the WPIAL, make the postseason. We'll hear from Roger Beidel, the head coach, in just a bit. The number 4 seed, Washington, the Little Prexies, will host number 13, New Brighton, and number 5, Beaver Falls, will welcome number 12, Western Beaver. That will take place at Geneva College and Reeves Field. Other side of the bracket, Stowe Rocks, a team that many thought could be the number 1 seed. They get number 2. They will host Shady Side Academy, the 15 seed. That will take place at Peters Township High School. Number 7, Chartiers Houston against number 10, Mohawk. The winner of that one will face either Stowe Rocks or the Bulldogs. The number 3 seed Laurel Spartans will welcome number 14 McGuffey. A little surprising. Remember, we thought McGuffey, that was such a good team a few years ago, thought maybe this could be a big year for them.
Yeah.
Didn't really work out like that, but they're still in the playoffs, have a chance to pull off a first-round upset. And number 6, Sarah Catholic, hosts number 11, Neshannock, although Sarah Catholic will be playing its home game at Norwin High School. So not too far necessarily for the Eagles, but not on their home friendly confines necessarily. So we mentioned Ligonier Valley. They get the number 9 seed, and really this was just a crazy 2A bracket because you look at how the playoff seeds were determined and how the playoff berths were determined, the Allegheny Conference had just 6 teams, which means that unlike the other conferences, only 3 teams were guaranteed in, and then potentially one via the wild card, which did turn out to go to Shadyside Academy, by the way, which finished in 4th place. So Steel Valley gets the number 1 seed. They go 5-0, including 9-0 on the regular season. Sarah Catholic 4-1, 10-1. The only loss came against Steel Valley. Ligonier Valley finishes 8-2. If they had lost to Apollo Ridge and finished 7-3, they very easily could have been outside of the playoffs. And that's something that Roger Beidel had mentioned to me. How unbelievable would that be to have a 7-win team miss the playoffs? And then you look at some of those wins. They defeated a 4A playoff team in Indiana. They defeated one of the best 3A teams in Elizabeth Forward. It's so difficult to try to gauge when you only have 5 conference games to determine if you're in or out.
Yeah, I don't know what more to say about it. I mean, you look at the teams that they beat, and I think it was the only year that Penn Trafford missed the playoffs under John Ruane.
They had a winning record.
They were 7-3, I believe, that year. So it would have been a shame, a real shame, if Ligonier would have missed the playoffs. Almost like Kiski missing the playoffs this year. I mean, what did Kiski finish now off the top of my head?
6-4.
Six wins. So, I mean, it's similar, certainly similar there. But, hey, the Rams took care of business. We mentioned last week they had, they controlled their own destiny, and they were able to take out Apollo Ridge. And they go into the playoffs with some momentum after really, a 40-0 loss to Steel Valley and that forfeit to Sarah Catholic. Obviously, there were some injuries. There was some COVID. They've gotten healthy, which is great. Hayden Siraki has been throwing the football a little bit, so it'll make for, I think, a really good 8-9 matchup.
Yeah, it certainly should be a good one because this Southside team is pretty solid in its own right. 7-3, including a victory against Western Beaver in the final week to get that number 2 spot out of the Three Rivers Conference. Again, in Class 2A, there are 4 different conferences, so that's why the field looks a little bit different than it does in some of the other brackets. I had a chance to talk to Roger Beidel, covered him for many years when they were dominating the District 6 Heritage Conference, and now they're maybe not dominating, but they are certainly a very, very capable team in Class 2A of the WPIAL as they await their first playoff game in a long, long time on Friday. Here's now the head coach, Roger Beidel.
We continue here on the playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers joined by the head coach for the Ligonier Valley Rams, Roger Beidel, as his team earns a playoff berth in Class 2A for the first time competing in the WPIAL postseason. Roger, congratulations. I know that was a big goal heading into the season. How good does it feel for your team to get into the playoffs in this district?
Thanks, Sean. It was. It has a great ring to it whenever you did the introduction there. It's been something that we had our sights set on, and then, with all the craziness that we had to deal with throughout the season, to finish 8-2 and get ourselves, we think a very fair seeding based on, all things considered in the WPIAL playoffs is a tremendous accomplishment by our kids, and couldn't be more proud of them.
And you had to do some work down the stretch, a 3-game winning streak heading into the postseason, including 48-22 against Apollo Ridge to seal that postseason berth on Friday. What has been key to the success over the past handful of games?
Well, I think maintaining our focus. I mean, that's been the first thing. With so many different things that we've had to deal with week in and week out, keeping our kids focused on the task at hand has been the most difficult thing. And then again, credit to them. They've been able to show up every single day, put their hard hats on, and go to work hard. And I think that's been the biggest thing. And then the other thing is, I would have to say that our kids accepting new roles in order for our team to be successful. I mean, in particular, on Friday night, two juniors really jump out in terms of that aspect, and that's McKinley Shear, who got his first start as an inside linebacker, who was a kid who was a defensive end for a little while, an outside linebacker, and he performed very, very well. And the same with Nick Lonis, who was an outside linebacker, defensive back, inside linebacker, and then back at strong safety. That's been something that many of our kids have had to do, is accept roles and give them jobs and give them assignments, and they go out and they do it. And that's honestly been the key in the last 3 games. That and have kids that when the opportunities present themselves, they make big plays. And that was really the case Friday night. We got off to a great start with some. I think we ran 4 plays and had 2 touchdowns in the first 4 plays that we ran, and that's just making the most of our opportunities. And kids that have real good athleticism have been able to really been able to answer the call.
And a guy who has been a steady force, whether you were in District 6 or in the WPIAL over the past 4 years, has been Jude Shavinsky. And he's really come into the spotlight the last couple of weeks, making that game-saving play against Shadyside Academy, and then a special moment for him as well against Apollo Ridge. What has he meant to this team?
He's been rock solid for us. And not only, this team this year, but over the course of his career. Jude's a kid who started for us from his very first game as a freshman, and with the game on Friday night, that was his 43rd consecutive start at center for us. And some people might think to themselves that's not a big deal, but when you go back to whenever he broke in as a freshman, he was starting on an offensive line that ultimately in the end had 3 Division I kids on it, and another kid who starts at the Division III level. So he was an anchor with guys who went on to really start at the collegiate level, and he's been there ever since. And, that was a special moment for him and his family to see that 43rd start on Friday night, which is only the 3rd player in my 18 years that's done that. I'll tell a quick story. I know we're kind of short on time, but every year we actually have kids create plays that they want to submit that we'll run in the last game of the year. And that's really what was created is, Broderick Schreier created the play, which was called Freight Train Right, where Jude takes the pass, or takes this direct snap from the center position, which, it's not normal for him. He runs forward the line of scrimmage and kind of like a Tim Tebow jump pass, he threw it to George Golden, which then created another crazy moment for us because all 12 of our seniors this year have scored a touchdown. And that's another thing that's never happened. And Jude was the one that threw it to George Golden. So it's just a really special, fun moment for our football program.
And now looking ahead to the playoffs this week, you mentioned you thought it was a pretty fair seed for your team to get the number 9 spot, and you go against number 8 Southside Area Beaver. What do you know about that team? What stands out looking at them on film?
Well, they come in with a record of 7-3, and really their playoffs started kind of like us with the Week 10 game where they were at Western Beaver, and the winner of that game would be second in the conference, which ultimately would mean that you'd be hosting in the first round. So, they're a team that, like I said, is 7-3. They played a game under immense pressure against a rival in Week 10 to get the number 2 seed. They're a tough kid. They're tough kids. I mean, they're just tough kids. Their roster's not real big. I don't know whether it's been injury or they just traditionally don't have a lot of kids on their roster. It looks to me like, they're around 30 or so, just tough kids. And, defensively, they fly around. Their defensive line makes a lot of plays. And then offensively, they run a wing T. They're very, very good at it. They really only run a handful of plays, but their execution in those plays is meticulous. And as a school that we used to run the wing T, I kind of admire what they do whenever you see their kids down blocking and they're using the old, flippers to the hips and kind of covering them up, keeping them between their legs and just kind of waddling them down the line of scrimmage. And they love the C gap. And that's going to be our biggest challenge is they want to be in the C gap, and we have to find a way to take that away defensively. And then on the offensive side, they pretty much, they're 4-4 where they cover 3, which means there's going to be holes in those zones, and we're going to have to throw the football. And I think, I can't say enough about the job that Broderick Schreier's done for us, coming in under difficult circumstances. 1 minute you're standing on the sideline, signal plays in, and next thing you know, you're the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. But, just like we've seen the last couple weeks, some teams have loaded the box up against us, pretty much daring us to throw. And this week, Broderick really made them pay for it. And that's what we hope to see moving forward.
Final thing for you, Roger. Obviously, you know what it takes to have postseason success. You saw a lot of it in the Heritage Conference and throughout District 6. Maybe a few players were part of that as well, but for the most part, it is players who are competing in their first playoff game, at least getting meaningful snaps in it. So what will be key to have success now that it is postseason football?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to treat it just like any other game. it's bonus football. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be exciting. Really, the pressure, I think, when it comes to football, there's two things I talk to our kids about pressure all the time. That is, if you feel pressure and you feel like there's pressure, that's a good thing, because that means that you have high expectations and people have high expectations of you. But going in, you're right, Sean. Really, Nick Beidel, Jude Shavinsky, and Matthew Marinchak are the only three kids who started on our last playoff team in 2019. And so, it's nice to have that experience, but the pressure is really on the higher seeds. Not even on them, but there's not really a whole lot of pressure. We just see it as bonus football and a great opportunity. All the pressure really is on the Steel Valleys and the Stowe Rocks, because with number 1 seed comes a lot of pressure. Being a 9 seed, you got nothing to lose. We're going to go in loose and put together our best game plan and not play scared at all and see what happens. So we're really excited about that opportunity.
Roger, thanks so much for taking the time. Congratulations on getting into the playoffs, and good luck on Friday.
All right, thank you, Sean, and thanks for having me. Go Rams.
Always enjoy talking to Roger Beidel. He's one of those guys that, maybe we do a 9-minute interview, but we end up talking for like 20 minutes just about everything, about the playoffs, about all the different other classifications, some of the things that he loves about the WPIAL, maybe some of the things that he misses about District 6.
And when we went there before the season started for our training camp previews, we also found out from young Nick Beidel about the floodplain issue at Ligonier Valley.
Yeah.
It's a little wetter than, at Weller Field and at the practice field there. And
we mentioned it in this 2A bracket. We're going to revisit it again in 1A. A lot of these teams who get the home games don't get to play on their home field, and because you don't want to have a playoff game on a grass surface that is not in playing condition, because you don't want playoffs being decided by kind of field conditions, to be honest. So that's the 2A bracket. Again, we thank Roger Beidel, and that now takes us to the final bracket, the 1A bracket. And no surprise, I think you could usually pencil in the Clairton Bears to be the number 1 seed. Well, it turned out to be the case again. So they get a first-round bye, and they will face the winner of number 8, Greensburg Central Catholic, and number 9, Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. The Centurions will host, but it will take place at Hempfield Area High School on Friday. So if you want to go out to support the Centurions, don't go to Greensburg Central Catholic. Do not make that mistake. There will be no one there. Go to Hempfield Area. So we're going to hear from Marco Thomas momentarily, but to me, this is so hard to gauge. GCC at times looked like they could play with anyone, and I say that because I saw them play with Clairton and have a chance in the fourth quarter. And yet, they had some showings that weren't great. They kind of had self-inflicted damage in the loss against Bishop Canavan. They lost against a pretty good Leechburg team to conclude the regular season. And yet you almost say, well, whatever they did in the regular season, it's going to be a completely different team, because all the stories about the transfers that came in from Jeanette and Monessen and elsewhere, well, those players, by and large, are ineligible for the postseason, which means they are going to be without Jaden Kennedy, Keontae Robinson. They're going to be without Ryan Kimmel, Tyshawn Jameson. So they have, I think, 5 players who started on both sides of the football who are going to be out for this game. And quite frankly, when you're a 1A school, that's almost something that you can't recover from. They're going to have other players who are going to step in, and some of them are capable, but there's just no way that they're going to be the same looking team that they were last week.
No, not at all. I mean, how can you possibly evaluate this team right now, because you have no idea what to expect from them? If it was a case of where none of these players would be ineligible if they had all their players, including DeLugos. We got to mention him, too.
Yeah, he's out with injury.
He's out, I think, with the knee injury for the remainder of the season, which may just be one game for GCC. We'll see. But if they're at full strength, I give them a chance, certainly, of beating Olsh. I give them a chance of beating Clairton, because you saw them, compete with Clairton on their home field, again, a couple of weeks ago, like you just mentioned. But, without all these guys, Sean, I don't know how you can say that, they have a realistic opportunity to truly make, any hay in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's one of those rules where I understand why it's in place, but to me, it's like you have these kids play all season long and then say, well, once you get to the playoffs, then you can't play. And I know that.
I feel like you're either ineligible or you're eligible.
Yeah,
that's it.
right.
You know, I mean, I don't. And again, I understand why these things are in place too, because you got to be careful. And I know that there are people kind of rolling their eyes, saying, "Well, you know, private schools get around this stuff anyway." But I understand why things are in place. But again, you're either eligible or ineligible, in my opinion.
And how tough is it for those players who are seniors who are not able to play?
Yeah, I think Jamison was one of them.
Yep.
Correct? He's a senior.
Yeah, and I think
Kimmel was a junior. I think.
Yeah, correct.
But yeah, I mean that's tough. You know, you play all year, and you put all this work in to get to the postseason, and then you know your team's ineligible, you're ineligible.
You become the biggest supporter on the sidelines.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, for Greensburg Central Catholic, again, going against number 9, Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. We'll hear from Marco Thomas in just a second. The rest of the bracket, number 4, West Green will host number 13, Springdale. That's a Dynamos team that was really good last year. They've taken a step back, and yet you still get the feeling maybe they can potentially pull off an upset against a West Green team that comes from a Tri-County South Conference that typically struggles once it gets to postseason play. Number 12, Rochester hosts number 5, Rochester hosts number 12, Mapletown. That will take place at Freedom Area High School. On the other side of the bracket, Cornell gets the number 2 seed. They will welcome number 15, Monessen. That will not take place at Cornell. It will be at West Allegheny High School. And for the Greyhounds, just getting to the playoffs, that's a major accomplishment for a program that looked like it would not even maybe be able to continue in 2021 after a really tough 2020. So good to see them, if nothing else, get out there, play all their games, win enough to get to the postseason, and now everyone gets that experience. You look at Leechburg as the number 7 seed, and they will host number 10, California. Number 3, Bishop Canevin against number 14, Burgettstown. That will take place at Cannon McMillan High School. And Carmichael's, the number 6 seed, welcomes number 11, Shenango. We mentioned GCC, the number 8 seed, will be the host team at Hempfield Area High School. I had a chance to talk to their first-year head coach, Marco Thomas, right here on the special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. I know one of the goals, obviously, when you come to a school like GCC is to get back to the playoffs. You have done that. How did you evaluate how the regular season went in your first year?
You know, we made the playoffs, like you said. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted a little bit of a higher seed. We felt that we had the talent enough to do that. But, you know, we're in the playoffs. We're, you know, technically a home game like we wanted. They moved us over to Hempfield. You know, we still have a lot of improvement to do. The games that we lost, I felt, you know, we kind of controlled that, bad penalties, and just, you know, still just a little bit of lack of discipline in those games kind of cost us. Just how I feel about it. You know, we're 1 or 2 plays away in all 3 of those section games that we lost. Like I said, we're in the playoffs. We're happy. Everybody's 0-0, and now, you know, we got a shot.
And coaches are never going to be happy in losses. But that being said, the game that I covered, when you went to Clairton and you played a competitive game and had a chance in the fourth quarter to even take a lead, to me, that was a kind of a indicator that your team can hang with any in the entire classification if you play your best. What did you take away from that night?
Oh, I agree. I thought we played a great game that day. You know, we shot ourselves in the foot, though, when we had our opportunities. Just a couple turnovers, penalties, again, that put us in bad situations, took us out of situations, really, that I think we could have maybe turned the game around and put it in our favor. You know, we're still growing. They were still learning to play together. But I appreciated their fight, and they didn't give up. And, you know, even after the big loss of Danny in the second quarter there, you know, the kids didn't put their heads down. They kept on grinding, and they gave their best shot. We just came up short.
And you mentioned Danny DeLugos and his injury that ended his senior season prematurely. That's not something you really could have planned for, but one thing that you have been able to anticipate is that you would be without several key players if you entered the postseason. That's now come to fruition. How difficult is it for guys who have been key contributors all season to now be out of the lineup and for other players to have to kind of fill that void?
You know, we went through the season and we kind of did our best to make sure everybody got in at some point, you know, just trying to work these guys that we knew that were going to be contributing here in the playoffs for us. We worked them in as best as we can, as often as we can, to get them that experience. And it's going to be tough. You're talking about
five starters on defense, a couple on offense. It's tough to replace those guys, but we have people that have, that have gotten snaps that, have been in those positions at some point throughout the year that we have 100% faith in that they're going to step up and do a great job. As for the other guys, they are being the best team players that they can. They are the first to hop up on the scout team on offense, defense, just to try to make our guys, better by going against them in competition.
Talking to Marco Thomas, first-year head coach for the Centurions. So I know last week you came up short against Leechburg, and that seemed like a pretty good battle, competitive one from start to finish. What were your takeaways from that setback?
Just the same things as the other two losses. I thought we did some things that put ourselves in the hole, but that's a good team. We knew we were going up against one of the higher scoring teams in any classification this year. They're a very well-rounded team. Good running back, good quarterback, good receivers. Their tight end played a spectacular game against us. Anything that was thrown his way, he gobbled up, and he made the big catches when they needed to be made. And they made the plays that needed to be made in the crunch time there. And we just got to look at it, grow from it, and just get better, and hopefully we can use it to help us get through the playoffs here.
One player on your team who's made a lot of plays this season is Tyree Turner. I was really impressed by his play at quarterback against the Bears, but I was also impressed by the other quarterback, Nate DeLugos, who I thought did a really nice job as a receiver. How much do you count on both of them with their positions?
They're both stepping up enormously. You talk about Tyree. We put him in late, probably third game or so. We started working him in a little more, and he's just really done a great job with the offense. He's protecting the ball for the most part. He's making the correct reads. A lot of these things that we do are those RPOs where there's multiple reads on each play, and he's been doing a great job with that. As for Nate, you can't ask for just a better transition. Not too many people go from starting quarterback and can swallow their pride and go play another position. But there was no doubt with him. He went over there. He's started working out, and just has turned it on. He's a guy that when we need something done, we're going to try to give him the ball. He had a phenomenal game against Leechburg. A couple catches that were just outstanding, and really timely catches, and he's really starting to step up in that receiver spot.
I know you said before that the hope was that your team would finish a little bit better record-wise and get a better seed, but knowing what your record was heading into Saturday in the brackets, what was your anticipation? Was the 8 seed about what you were hoping for?
Yeah, we were thinking we could be as high as 8 and as low as 11. We had our targets kind of narrowed down to Olsh or Carmichael's that we thought we would get, and we started breaking down things then, and luckily for us we guessed right with Olsh, and so we kind of a little ahead of the game, and it's no easy task, put it that way. They're a good football team. They play in a tough conference. They're coming off a big win, beating Cornell, who was undefeated prior to that. So I'm sure they're flying high as well, so it's going to be a good game.
What will be the biggest keys for success against the Chargers?
Discipline. We have way too many offside penalties, false start penalties, things that are putting us in the hole early, especially early in games. So we just have to be more disciplined. We have to be aligned correctly and just worry about our job, take care of our own job. I think we should be all right. If we start, trying to do too much, that's when we start getting in trouble.
Lastly, you mentioned it before, you're the home team, but it's not at your home field. You're going not too far away to Hempfield area, but it's a little bit of an adjustment, I would think, for the players to play on the turf field. So how do you handle that?
Just same as any other week for us. We've played on turf before. It's nothing new. Obviously, our field after all that rain, it's not doable to host a game. It was in real bad shape after Friday night. It's we were on it today, and it was not in any better shape. So we were kind of hoping that if we got the home playoff game, that's where we'd end up. So it's not too far away for us, and it's a great facility over there. So we're excited that we got moved to the turf.
Marco, thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations on getting to the playoffs in your first year, and good luck on Friday.
All right, thank you very much.
That's Marco Thomas, the head coach for Greensburg Central Catholic.
And we appreciate Marco Thomas. Good to see that he's had success in his first year at a new school, and certainly after struggling for a long time at Connellsville, has to feel good for him to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, to get into the playoffs. And again, you'd like to say and get into the playoffs and really have a chance maybe to get some wins. But and I don't want to say that they're going to go in there thinking they're going to lose. I mean, they still have some talented guys. But again, with the injury to DeLugos and the transfers not being able to play, it really does take a shot. But we'll see what happens.
And we should note, and I know you like to do this every year for the people tuning in, that we are not probably going to be broadcasting any of these playoff games. That being said, we're still going to have plenty of coverage on them.
Yeah, we will. And when we talk about this every year, unfortunately, and this would change in the future, the WPIAL and the Trib Live Sports Network, they both have an exclusive contract with one another, so the Trib has exclusive rights to all of the postseason games, meaning the games that we do every Friday night, once the playoffs roll around, it becomes cost prohibitive for us to be able to broadcast these games because of the fact that the Trib charges upwards of $1,000, we'll just be honest about it, to be able to broadcast these games. So it does make it incredibly difficult because during the regular season, we can just go in and broadcast them and not have any strings attached. We may be able to broadcast Penn Trafford, maybe 1 or 2 games. We'll see what happens. Obviously, they're off this week, so into the future, we may be able to do something like that because of the business support that they have in the Penn Trafford community. That's how we have to do. We have to find a bunch of sponsors to be able to obviously make it happen. So we're just being as transparent as possible and telling everybody kind of what the deal is. But all that being said, we will have coverage on our website, westmorelandsports.com. Sean will still have the preview on Friday. We still have this show, and we will have all of the scores up to date as fast as we possibly can on our scoreboard at the top of our website. So please do visit our website on Friday night, westmorelandsports.com. We'll still have all the scores there for you. We'll be tweeting out the scores on our social media, and we will have recaps for you as well on Friday night. So we're still going to be very much involved with our teams, and again, we may be able to broadcast PT in a couple of weeks. We'll find out.
And again, we're going to have the preview on Friday running down all of the playoff games. And then I didn't mention this, fingers crossed, the championships for 1A through 5A will take place either on Friday, November 26th or Saturday, November 27th. All 5 of those will be at Heinz Field. If any of our county teams, and I have a feeling that we'll probably at least get one there, fingers crossed, we will be providing comprehensive coverage. We did that a year ago for Jeanette when the Jayhawks captured the 1A championship. So a lot more to look forward to. Again, we will be back next week because we know
we're not done. We're not done.
Bell Vernon area, Penn Trafford, they will still be alive because they are not playing this week. And then we know at least one team in the 3A bracket from Westmoreland County will move on as well. So you can catch us next Wednesday for the special playoff edition, Part 2, right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. But for now, signing off, I want to thank everyone who helped make this possible, all of the great coaches, Lance Getze of Franklin Regional, Jason Fazikis of Mount Pleasant area, Sean Liotta of Burrell, Dave Kiefer of Southmoreland, Roger Beidel of Ligonier Valley, and Marco Thomas from Greensburg Central Catholic for taking the time to talk to us. For my colleague Dan Flickinger, Sean Meyers signing off. We'll catch you again next week right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.